It's time for Michigan's newest sports talk show, Mitten Madness.
And here he goes. Defense win championship.
Michigan sports talk from here in Battle Creek. The latest stories, the biggest games, all across the Mitten State.
That's not something you play with.
Streaming live and on demand on the 95.3 WBCK app. Here are your hosts, Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes.
Good morning on this Saturday morning. Welcome back to another episode of Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. I'm your host, Da'Jzon Hughes. I'm going to be talking all things Michigan sports for the next hour. This week, we're going to be diving back into the Tigers, talking about how they can get back on the winning train after they've had quite the slump coming out of the All-Star break. Then we're going to be talking Pistons Summer League, all the results that they had from their week out in Las Vegas, and possibly who's going to have big seasons after their summer in the Summer League, and who's going to be cracking the roster as some of the new guys who were able to show out and show that they have enough to play at the NBA level. And in that third segment, we're going to be diving into Big Ten football. We got a preview going on and some more information with the Michigan sign-stealing scandal. And, of course, I'll get into my picks at the end of the episode, in which I had a solid week last week, so I feel like the winning ways might be back. But as always, I'm doing well. Do want to have that transparency with you all. This episode's being recorded on Wednesday because I'm taking some more vacation, headed out to Syracuse to enjoy some time for myself. So some of this may sound outdated, but that's all because it was on a Wednesday. Normally I do this on Friday. So there's that little tidbit of behind the scenes for you. I'm, just taking some time to myself now that lacrosse is over for the summer. I can breathe and take some time to enjoy myself before high school football gets started in just over a month. So hope you guys are ready for those Friday nights, bringing you the best football in the Battle Creek area. We're going to talk about the Tigers. But, as always, we got to start with our mandatory standings readings. We'll start with the divisions. Of course, AL Central comes up first. Detroit Tigers still at the top at 60-43. 8.5 games back, deadlocked at 550-50 are the Cleveland Guardians. And then the Twins are 10 games back of the Tigers at 49-52. In the East, the Blue Jays are 59-42 at the top of that division. 3 games behind them are the Yankees at 56-45. The Red Sox 6 games behind the Blue Jays at 54-49. In the AL West, Houston Astros sitting atop at 59-42. 5 games behind them are the Mariners at 54-47. And 7.5 games behind the Astros are the Rangers at 52-50. Down in the NL West, the Dodgers are 59-43 at the top of that division. 4 games ahead of the Padres, who are 55-47. And 5.5 games back at 54-49 are the San Francisco Giants. In the NL East, the Philadelphia Phillies are 58-43. They're a half game above the Mets at 58-44. And the Marlins come in 10 games behind the Phillies at 48-53. In the NL Central, Chicago Cubs are tied with the Milwaukee Brewers at the top of that division at 60-41. And 8 games behind the both of them are the Cincinnati Reds at 53-50. Looking at Major League Baseball overall, the Tigers have had quite the slump and now find themselves in second place, 1 game behind the Cubs and the Brewers, who are sitting at the top. The Astros and the Blue Jays are also in second place as they are 1 game behind. And then rounding out the top 5 are the Dodgers, 1.5 games back of the lead. Man, are things starting to tighten up in the second half of this All-Star break. We're going to head over and look at how the statistics have changed a little bit. Riley Green still leads the team in home runs and RBIs. 25 of the homers, 79 runs batted in. He's averaging a 2.76 batting average. Meanwhile, the leader for batting average is Gleyber Torres at 283. His OBP is 387, and his slugging percentage is 419. Pitching is still Skubal leading the mound, 219 for his ERA, 10 wins on the year, and 164 strikeouts. But let's talk about their schedule over the last couple of weeks. We last talked after they had a tough series against the Mariners and then dropped 2-1 against the Rangers, which always hurts. You want to win series more than you want to lose them. And then they just got swept by the Pittsburgh Pirates this week, 3-0, 8-5, and 6-1. Those are all tough losses. Granted, two of those series are inter-league series, which isn't as big of a deal as losing an American League series, but it still hurts because it drops you in the rankings. Granted, they have a nice lead in the AL Central, so there's nothing to worry about there, but you do want that top spot in the MLB. You do want that top spot in your league because that helps you out with seeding in the playoffs, helps you out with bye weeks and all of those good things as well. So let's look at what the Tigers have coming up over the next week. They're heading into a 4-game series with the Blue Jays that started on Thursday. 6:40 p.m. first pitch. They had Olsen on the mound against Lauer. Skubal was on the mound Friday night for a 7:10 first pitch against Berrios. 6:10 p.m. Flaherty is on the mound against Gausman tonight. And then 1:40 p.m. tomorrow, Casey Mize against Max Scherzer. It's a 1:40 p.m. first pitch. All of these games are at home at Comerica Park. And then they're going to take on the Arizona Cardinals at Comerica Park, a 3-game series on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. 6:40 p.m. first pitch for Monday and Tuesday, a 1:10 first pitch for Wednesday. Wednesday's game is on MLB Network. Melton and Rodriguez will step on the mound on Monday. Olsen and Fott on Tuesday, and Skubal and Nelson on Wednesday. And then they cap off next week playing the Phillies heading into the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll touch on that next week. But while we have the opportunity, we are going to look at how things are going to look for this series coming up this weekend for the Detroit Tigers. That first game, they were giving the Tigers a 60% chance to win as Eric Lauer was on the mound with a 2.80 ERA going against Reese Olson. You know the Tigers have fared well at Comerica Park. They do have a 2-1 series lead on the Blue Jays so far this year. On Friday, Skubal's on the mound against Berrios. They gave the Tigers a 70% chance to win that game as well. Berrios only 6 wins on the year, a 3.87 ERA. He's given up 110 hits and 16 homers in comparison to just 88 hits and 9 homers for Skubal. Later tonight, with Gausman on the mound against Flaherty, Gausman's got 7 wins, a 4.01 ERA. He's given up 97 hits and 15 homers. Flaherty only has 5 wins, a 4.77 ERA, with 91 hits and 19 homers. They're giving the Tigers a 53.4% chance to win this game as well, which seems tight and possibly out of realm. But we'll find out. Flaherty has definitely struggled coming out of the All-Star break. And then the last game of the series, Casey Mize, which is going to be tomorrow. Max Scherzer. Scherzer has a 5.14 ERA, 27 hits, 7 homers. He's only got 1 win on the year. Mize has 9 wins, 3.4 ERA, 96 hits, 12 homers. Tigers have a 60% chance to come out with victory of this one as well. I won't touch too much on the Diamondback games now because I will be picking those later in the show, but the Tigers do have great chances of winning these games as well, mainly because they are at Comerica Park. But Eduardo Rodriguez will take on Troy Melton. Fott will take on Olsen, and then Nelson will take on Skubal in that 3-game series. Both of these series seems like great opportunities for the Tigers to get back on the winning train and find that spark that they had before the All-Star break. I think the main thing here is the bats haven't been going the way they were to start the year. I think that affects the defense, which affects the pitching, which turns into some of the scores that we have seen recently. There's nothing the Tigers can't fix. They had this problem at the end of last year. They were able to squeeze into the playoffs, and they were able to spark an insane start to this year. So it's not like the Tigers don't have all of the pieces to be successful. They just have to be able to turn it back on. And right now they've really struggled doing so coming out of the All-Star break. And I think a lot of it has to do with getting swept right before the All-Star break. That's tough. Getting swept is something you don't want to do. That was the first time the Tigers have been swept all season. And then they had a week and a half to sit on it during the All-Star break. And none of the Tigers played all that well in the All-Star game either. So I think a lot of this has to do with that sweep that happened right before the break. And then you come out, you lose 2 series, and one of them is a sweep. That's not good either. You want to be able to come out and start to win some games. So the Tigers are going to have to look to get a turn on things and get the bats going again. I'm not sure what the answer is. It might be torpedo bats because I'm not sure if the Tigers are using them at the moment. If they are, then you just got to get back to finding the ball and making contact with the barrel and letting that thing fly. It's a lot easier said than done. And also I'm sitting behind a microphone saying it. I'm not on a baseball field trying to hit a baseball. So I can say all the things I want, but I know that the Tigers are doing everything they can, and I have faith that they're going to be able to turn this thing around and be able to get back in the winning column. But things are tough for them moving forward, so they do want to find that spark pretty soon because there are some tough series coming up. The Twins, which is not only that's a divisional rival. You want to be able to win that game. You got the Angels coming up, who have been playing good ball recently, and you have another 2 more divisional series between the Chicago White Sox and the Minnesota Twins following that as well. So the month of August is going to be a gauntlet for the Detroit Tigers. So if they don't have things on wraps now, it's going to get tougher, and it's going to be much harder to maintain that lead that they have in the division. But that's just our Tigers talk. When we come back from the break, we're going to be diving in on the Pistons Summer League and what the season could look like for them. That's after the break right here on 95.3 WBCK. Welcome back into Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. It's time for us to talk about some Pistons Summer League and what the season could look like for them coming up this October. Last time we talked to the Pistons, we're 2-2 and we're about to play a game against the Miami Heat, which they were able to take down the Miami Heat 108-88. Looking at the box score from this game, Bobby Klintman had another great game. He went 7 for 11 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, 3 for 4 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, 1 block, 3 turnovers, and 20 points. Dawson Garcia gave 12 points, had 1 block, 1 assist, 5 rebounds on 5 for 5 from the field, and 2 for 2 from behind the arc. Dennis Jenkins goes for 16. 3 turnovers, 10 assists, and 2 rebounds, 9 for 11 from the free throw line, 1 for 4 from behind the arc, and 3 for 11 from the free throw line. Zakai Ziegler gets 15 points off the bench, 7 for 7 from the free throw line, 2 for 3 from the three-point land, and 3 for 7 on field goals. Garrison Brooks also had 10 off the bench. He had 5 assists to go with 9 rebounds as well. Ziegler pouring in 4 assists. Pistons went out and handled business, 108-88, a big win for them. Vlad Golden, who's playing for the Heat, had 6 points in this game and 5 rebounds, 4 for 6 from the free throw line, but only 1 field goal. Kasparis Yakachonis from Illinois, also playing for the Heat, 4 for 12 from the field, 6 for 6 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and a block with 15 points. Eric Stevenson pulled in 15 points for the Heat as well. And Myron Gardner off the bench goes for 19 on 7 of 11 shooting and 4 for 5 from three-point land. And then the Pistons, unfortunately, were on the outside of the playoff bracket for the Summer League. So they ended up in the consolation bracket, which had them playing the Spurs. They would lose to the Spurs by 12, 96-84. Klintman only had 2 points in this game. Tolu Smith went for 10. Chaz Lanier went for 11. John Okumaru had 12 off the bench. Trevor Keels had 10 off the bench. TJ Madlock with 9, and Bryce Williams with 8. Meanwhile, the Spurs got 23 points from David Jones-Garcia, 12 points from Dexter Dennis, Jameer Nelson Jr., which makes all of us feel old. If you don't know who Jameer Nelson Jr. is, he's the son of Jameer Nelson, former point guard of the Orlando Magic, back when they were making playoff runs and eventually had an NBA Finals appearance with Dwight Howard. Yeah, I'm talking in the 2000s. So if you remember that, yeah, he's got a little guy, a junior, who's now playing in the Summer League and had 13 points off the bench. Josh Uduje had 11 as well. Osai Osafo pours in 8. Cam Carter helps with 9 as well. So the Pistons ended up going 3-3 for a 500 record in the NBA Summer League, which, I mean, that's not terrible for the squad that they were able to put out there. The Hornets were eventual Summer League champions. They went 6-0 in their Summer League bout, taking down the Kings, who were 5-1 in Summer League. Looking at Charlotte, they had Con Knuppel, who had 21 in the championship game. Ryan Kalkbrenner had 15. KJ Simpson and Jalen Sims both pouring 11. DJ Rodman, yes, that Rodman, the son of Dennis Rodman, had 11 points and 4 rebounds off of the bench in 16 minutes. The Kings didn't get much help on this day. Isaac Jones went for 24. Nick Clifford went for 10, and Devin Carter had 13. Everyone else kind of held at bay. But, yeah, like I said, the Pistons going 3-3 was kind of the best, not necessarily the best case scenario, because you would love to see them have gone 6-0 and to have won the Summer League title. But you got great play out of the guys you were looking to see, and Bobby Clipman took a huge step forward. Ron Holland had another great summer, so you're kind of expecting both of those guys to slot immediately into roster spots and be able to be productive parts of that team. Ron Holland already had a spot and was doing well. I think the improvements that he made over the summer, especially on the offensive end, are going to bode extremely well during the NBA season. He already was a great defender and rebounder, could make all the hustle plays that you needed, great communicator, but his offensive game lacked some. I think he was able to get in his bag over the summer, and he showcased that during the Summer League. So I'm excited to see the work that he continues to put in over the next couple of months and what he looks like when the season rolls out in October and early November for his offensive talents and how they're going to spark on this Detroit offense. I think Chaz Lanier has a chance to be slotted into the offense, especially with the departure of Malik Beasley with that whole situation and his gambling scenario. And I haven't heard more on that just yet, but I imagine that he's going to have to go through a lengthy court process, which will determine kind of obviously his consequences, but also if he'll ever be allowed to play in the NBA again and what that will look like for him if he is allowed to play again. And then I think Zakai Ziegler also had a really good summer. And there's a few other players that were able to showcase that they're going to do the small things that help teams win. The rebounding, the defense, the hustle plays, the communication, the supporting their teammates. They're showing up to make the next guy better. All of these things are things that you need to be a successful teammate in any sport. But most importantly in the NBA, if you're not showcasing that you can be guy number 12, they don't want you to be guy number 1. If you can't showcase that you can be guy number 15 that only suits up for home games or only makes so many travel lists, they don't want you to be guy number 3. Because those things don't work for you, right? So they don't want anything that doesn't work for them. I think the Pistons are going into what is going to be a great season for them. They haven't made many off-season moves of recent, but I believe we can take a look at their schedule for next year. Nope, they don't have any data out about their schedule just yet, so I'm going to see if it comes up online anywhere, because it was not on ESPN. Yeah, no, they do not have the schedules out for the upcoming season just yet, so we can't talk about how the beginning of the season could look for them in that way, but we can check in on the roster. Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Ron Harper Jr., Tobias Harris, Ron Holland II, Jaden Ivey, Dennis Jenkins, Kobe Clinton, Chaz Lanier, Karis LeVert, Paul Reed, Duncan Robinson, Marcus Sasser, Tolu Smith, Isaiah Stewart, Asur Thompson, and Lindy Waters the third. So we know Cade Cunningham's going to be in the rotation. Jalen Duren, rotation. Tobias Harris, rotation. Ron Holland II, rotation. We'd imagine Jay Ivey's in the rotation if he's healthy. Karis LeVert, rotation. Duncan Robinson, rotation. Marcus Sasser, rotation. Isaiah Stewart, rotation. Asur Thompson, rotation. But that leaves some spots open. And, they're open for Ron Harper Jr., Dennis Jenkins, Bobby Clinton, Chaz Lanier, Paul Reed, Tolu Smith, and Lindy Waters III are all up for 2 to 3 spots, which is going to make things interesting because only so many people can get those spots. It's going to be interesting to see who fits in. I think Chaz Lanier, obviously coming in as a rookie, he has tons to offer the team. He's a great defender and can splash the 3. A 3-and-D guy out on the wing is definitely something the Detroit Pistons can continue to benefit from, as they did lose Malik Beasley. Ron Harper Jr. is a great point guard. He reminds me a lot of his dad, who played with Michael Jordan back on the Bulls in the 90s. He's going to be able to man the floor, going to be able to be a floor general, handle the ball well, doesn't turn it over a ton, isn't a great scorer, but can facilitate and set up absolutely anyone on the floor at any time. Tolu Smith proved to be an amazing forward at 6'11", being able to stretch the floor and hit the 3. Also can bang with the big guys down low, grab tons of rebounds, and play phenomenal defense. He might be somebody who sneaks into the roster and is able to get into the rotation and play some time and significant minutes for the Detroit Pistons this year, but only time will tell. Obviously, we're expecting Cade Cunningham to come back and be an absolute star again. The big question for the Pistons is how healthy will Jaden Ivey be? If Jaden Ivey comes back and is he 100% healthy, he might be better than he was before, but he also might not be as good as he was. We haven't seen him play at game speed in over a year by the time he steps back on the floor. That will 100% affect him not only physically but mentally as well. Will he be able to get over the mental barrier of coming back from such a significant injury? All of these things are liable questions to be asking ourselves headed into the season. No one knows exactly what the season is going to look like for the Pistons, but everyone does expect them to go back to the playoffs. After getting the 6th seed last year and not having tons of roster turnover, why wouldn't you expect the Pistons to return back to a place that they just were a year ago? Honestly, I think a lot of people are going to be expecting them to be better, maybe fighting for one of those top 3 spots in the Eastern Conference instead of the bottom 3. And not necessarily bottom 3 because 4 through 6 is nowhere near the bottom, but it's the bottom of those secured playoff spots. You want the top 3. You want to have that home court advantage for that first round series and possibly even a second round series, depending on how well you're playing in the year. I don't think any of those things are out of the realm for the Detroit Pistons. They just have to decide how much they want it. They just have to decide if they're going to be a team that can win the close games that they lost last year to separate themselves from some of the other teams and have a few games advantage on some others. Tiebreakers are huge, and winning series against teams during the regular season is huge. These are all things the Pistons did last year but didn't do enough of. So are they going to be able to do enough of that this year? That's the golden question, and we'll talk more about that as the year goes on. For now, we're going to get ready to talk about Big Ten football when we come back from the break with more Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK.
Detroit sports fans, Wolverines and Spartans alike, this is your sports show, Mitten Madness, with Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes on 95.3 WBCK.
Welcome back into Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. It is time for us to talk about college football. We're going to talk about, first, the Michigan Wolverines before we dive into a Big Ten overlook for the season. we got to talk about this scandal that is still going on. Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti says he advocates that one of the best teams in the league in Michigan does not need to receive any further punishment for the sign stealing scandal. He sent a letter to the NCAA Committee on Infractions arguing that Michigan deserved no further punishment in a case focusing on the actions of former staffer Connor Stallions. It was read in an early June Infractions Committee hearing in Indianapolis. The NCAA charged Michigan with 11 rule violations, 6 of them level 1, which is classified as the most serious. The committee has yet to hand down a ruling, but one is expected before the start of this season. It does not have to follow or even consider Petitti's opinion. The Big Ten did confirm that Petitti sent the letter to the committee to ESPN, said he would have attended in person, but was recovering at the time from a hip replacement surgery. He argues that the Big Ten itself had already sufficiently and significantly punished the Michigan program when it suspended then head coach Jim Harbaugh for the final 3 games of the regular season at Penn State, Maryland, and at home against Ohio State. Even without Harbaugh, Michigan won all 3 of those en route to capturing the national championship that year. Petitti isn't the only one that says Michigan doesn't need further punishment. A lot of people are jumping on that train and saying, hey, this is long past what's going on. You're continuing to dive into this. You're not really finding more information. If you're going to hand down something, you should have done it a long time ago. Leave this team and institution alone, and let's just play football. So we'll find out how true that's going to be as the season draws closer, as they're supposed to be giving a verdict within the next month before the season starts. Now it's time to talk Big Ten football overall. Ohio State obviously has a chance to repeat, but after 2 years of competition, redemption arcs, the ultimate breakthrough in redemption could be on the horizon this fall. 5 AP top 10 finishes, 10 losses to Ohio State. James Franklin appears to have put together his most complete Penn State team yet and has received plenty of hype in the way too early rankings. From the recap, obviously Oregon's at the top, Penn State second, Indiana third, Ohio State fourth, Iowa fifth, Illinois sixth, Michigan seven, then Minnesota, USC, Rutgers, Washington, Nebraska, Wisconsin, UCLA, Michigan State, Northwestern, Maryland, and Purdue. Illinois and Indiana both returned top 40 levels of production after last season's surprise runs, which is awfully intriguing. Penn State's returnees are in the top 25 after reaching last season's semifinal, and that's obviously a big reason for their hype this year. And then the other 2 teams, Ohio State and Oregon, remain at the top, even though they lost quite a bit, which is pretty normal after winning a national championship. By the way, if you're intrigued by the roster flips, Purdue is the team to look at. They had more than 50 players transfer out and 50 new in. They bring up the rear of the department, but is genuinely terrible as they were last year. Things could be on the up and up for them as well. Oregon looks to avoid falling too far behind everyone else after losing tons of production. Michigan obviously is going to be wanting to rebound properly. Illinois and Indiana both want happy encores, while everyone else is looking to make a run at the national championship game. The top 10 games of the year for the Big Ten. Obviously, you got Texas at Ohio State and Michigan at Oklahoma. Illinois at Indiana is expected to be a large one on September 20th. Texas is playing Ohio State on August 30th, and Michigan's at Oklahoma on September 6th. Oregon at Penn State on September 27th. USC at Illinois and Indiana at Iowa also on September 27th. Michigan at USC again on October 11th. Penn State at Ohio State on the 1st. Indiana at Penn State on the 8th. And, of course, the game, Ohio State at Michigan on November 29th. So we're talking conference title contenders. Obviously, you have Ohio State coming in at the top. Penn State and Nittany Lions right behind them. You got the Oregon Ducks making it, and surprisingly, the Michigan Wolverines. If you can beat Ohio State and Alabama without a quarterback, just, imagine what they can do with one, right? So either 5-star freshman Bryce Underwood or veteran transfer Mikey King will be at quarterback for Michigan this year. It's probably fair to assume that Underwood will finish the year there. His first spring was up and down, but going from the aforementioned black hole to the best high school prospect in the country is quite the leap. Justin Haynes joins the backfield. Also, C.J. Hester from UMass. And then receiver Donovan McCulley is joining that receiving crew. You also have Cal Poly's Brandon Norton and Ferris State's Loris Hatter and many other youngsters making their transfers into this team as they look to improve the offense. Don't even get me started on the defense because obviously it's still going to be blockbuster. You got transfers of Trey Williams from Clemson, Damon Payne from Bama, Rayshawn Benny and Ike Uwana. So the rotation should be stronger. Linebacking core has Ernest Hausman, Jayshawn Barham, and Derek Moore and TJ Guy all returning. You got Arkansas transfer TJ Metcalf and starter Rod Moore at safety, along with Jair Hill, who's obviously the best corner in the country now that Will Johnson is gone. The Illini are going to be fighting as a championship contender, along with Kurt Cignetti's Hoosiers, who had their best year ever last year. The Cornhuskers are on the outside looking in, but Matt Rule's definitely going to be looking to make some waves. Lincoln Riley going to look to put USC back on the map. And then the latter half of the conference, Iowa being Iowa. We don't expect their offense to be great, but their defense should be fantastic. PJ Fleck going into his 9th year at the helm of the Golden Gophers. Still going to look to have that big push in the Big Ten and make it to a championship game. Maybe this is the year, maybe not. There's only one way to tell. The Huskies, then the Scarlet Knights from Rutgers, the Wisconsin Badgers, UCLA Bruins, Maryland Terrapins, and the Michigan State Spartans. They say they pulled a reverse UCLA in Smith's first seasons. They were 4-3 after a 32-20 win over Iowa. Aiden Childs damaged the Hawkeyes' defense and usually makes the lives of young quarterbacks hard. But it was almost all downhill from there as they topped 17 points only once in their final 5 games and beat only Purdue in that stretch. They don't think it'll take Smith until 4 years to get it going at MSU like he did at Oregon State, but they would be surprised if it happened in year 2. Child's development remains in process. He'll most likely have new skill corps around him. Sophomore receiver Nick Marsh, tight end Jack Velling are solid as they have a fun lower-level transfer such as running backs Elijah Tolliver, receiver Amari Kelly, and Krishan McCray, along with Ronnie Bullard, all from Sacramento State, Middle Tennessee, Kent State, and Valdosta State, respectively. The offense will undoubtedly improve, but there's such a mountain to climb there, and the defense does not give them much help, but they are expected to be ahead of both the Wildcats and the Purdue Boilermakers. So tons of things could happen in the Big Ten this year. Michigan expected to be a contender for the title, but it's Ohio State's to lose. Are we right or are we right? We're only going to find out as the season continues to progress. I hope you're excited for some college football because I'm definitely going to be looking for Michigan to make another run at not only the Big Ten title, but hopefully a national championship as well. We're going to get ready to take another break. When we come back, we're talking all those picks and making them for the weekend so we can have so much fun enjoying our sports. So we're going to be back with more Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK.
95.3 WBCK.
Welcome back into Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. It's time for us to get into the picks for the week. Last week, the winning ways were starting to come back to your boy. Now, I will let you in on a little secret. Like I said earlier in the show, this was recorded on Wednesday. My last pick for last week was actually a Thursday game, so I wasn't able to know the score of that one. So I was 3-2 last week, which gets me up to 39-20. I will add that other result to next week's scores, so we'll be all caught up and even once again. But hey, I'm 19 games above 500 now. I would say that I'm doing pretty good. Once again, you can follow along keep track of the picks and how you're doing, and then submit those picks into the chat feature on WBCK and our app, and we'll see if anybody's going to do any better than I am. But 19 games above 500, I ain't tooting my own horn. Well, maybe I am a little, but it's pretty good. You know what I'm saying? So now it's time for us to, dive into a new set of picks. Yet another week, and we're going to start with a series that's popping down next week with the Detroit Tigers. This is a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday series against the Arizona Diamondbacks, who come in 50-52 on the year. They're 24-25 on the road. The Detroit Tigers, 60-43 on the year. They were the first team to 60 wins, and they're 32-18 on the year at Comerica Park. All three of these games are at Comerica Park. Monday's game is a 6:40 first pitch with a 57.6% chance for the Tigers to win, as Troy Melton is on the mound. He's only got one loss on the year, and the ERA is extremely high in 5 innings pitched, but we got to give him time to warm up and step into his role. Eduardo Rodriguez, 3-6 on the year, 5.50 ERA, and 86 innings pitched, 111 hits given up, and 16 home runs with just 96 strikeouts. Eugenio Suarez has 36 home runs on the year with a 2.54 ERA and an 86 RBIs. He leads in both home runs and RBIs. Naylor leads the Diamondbacks with a 2.93 batting average, 3.61 OBP, and a 449 slugging percentage. This is the only series the Detroit Tigers will play against the Diamondbacks this year, which makes this feel uberly important. Game 1 might be tough for the Tigers to win. So in my opinion, they're going into games 2 and 3, possibly down a game and needing to win both in order to win the series. Game 2 is going to be Tuesday night, 6:40 p.m. first pitch, once again at Comerica Park. 50-52 are those Diamondbacks. Hopefully during this game they're 50-53 or lower, because they have more games coming up this weekend. Anyway, 38.3% chance for the Diamondbacks to win Game 2, as they have Brandon Pfaadt on the mound. He's got a 10-6 record, 4.82 ERA, and 106 innings pitched, 111 hits given up, 90 strikeouts for 17 home runs. Meanwhile, the Tigers throwing out Reese Olson, 4-3 on the year, 2.71 ERA in 63 innings pitched, only 52 hits, 61 strikeouts, and 3 homers that he's given up. Sounds good for the Tigers in Game 2, which you ask me, we're going into Game 3 all knotted at 1. As Ryan Nelson will take on Tariq Skubal for a 1:10 first pitch on Wednesday. Nelson 6-2 on the year, 3.52 ERA and 84 innings pitched, 63 hits, 69 strikeouts, and 9 homers. Meanwhile, Skubal 10-3 on the year, 2.19 ERA and 127 innings pitched, 88 hits, 164 strikeouts, and just 9 home runs. I like when Skubal's on the mound. It makes me feel a little more confident. And if we're going in 1-1 and looking at the numbers, I'm going to trust the Tigers can win a home series and get themselves back on track. Taking this one maybe 2-1, but a sweep would be fantastic. Stepping into the octagon, we got a UFC fight night going down on the 26th. Robert Whittaker versus Rainier de Ridder is our main event, but the co-main is a bantamweight fight from Peter Yan going against Marcus McGee. The prelims for this event, ESPN Plus at noon, and then the main card is going to be on ABC and ESPN Plus at 3 p.m. Peter Yan comes in 5'7", 135 pounds, 32 years old, at 67 on the reach with a switch fighting stance, an 18-5 record out of Russia. Meanwhile, Marcus McGee is 5'8", 136 pounds, 35 years old, 69 inches on the reach. He's an orthodox fighter, and he's out of United States with a 10-1 record. The fight odds, plus 300 on the money line for McGee, while it's a 400 favorite for Peter Yan. They are expecting the fight to go to distance, as that's a 300-point favorite, and it is a 700-point favorite to go over half of a round. So it looks like it's going to last at least one round, but isn't expected to last 3. Jan is the favorite, and as much as I like Peter Yan and the experience he has in the ring, something about 10-1 and the hunger that Marcus McGee has to continue making his way up the rankings has me sliding with McGee on this one. I'm going to take the older guy and the underdog in this scenario and roll with McGee to come out big in the octagon on Saturday afternoon. And then we're going back to that main event. It's a middleweight fight. Robert Whittaker out of Australia, 27-8, standing 6 foot, 185 pounds, 34 years old, 73.5 inches on the reach, is an orthodox fighter, going against Rainier de Ridder, who's 20-2, stands 6'4", 185 pounds, 34 years old, 78 inches on the reach. He's a southpaw fighter, and he's out of the Netherlands. De Ridder a plus 130 underdog, but it's a tight underdog because Whittaker's only a negative 155 favorite. It's a negative 1,100 to be over half a round, but it's negative 110 to be under half a round. They say it will not go the distance as that's a negative 260 favorite. This is going to be such an interesting fight. They're both amazing strikers. They're both amazing fighters, and they're ready to get down on the mat at any time. This is one of the most even fights that we'll see of the year. I'm going with length, 78 inches, 6'4" in the height. That screams at me, and de Ridder has been fighting unreal in the last couple of years. So I'm going to go with Rainier de Ridder to come out on top and hopefully win this middleweight main event. That's going to send us on to the hardwood. We're touching in with the WNBA once again. Seattle Storm, 14-10 on the year. They're 6-5 on the road. They're traveling to take on the Washington Mystics over in D.C., who are 11-12 on the year, but they're 7-4 when they're playing at the Care First Arena. This is a 7:30 p.m. tip-off. 60.6% from the Storm to 39.4% for the Mystics. Skylar Diggins and company are coming in and looking to get back on the winning ways and stretch out the comfortable lead that they have on a couple teams in the Western Conference. They did drop the first game to the Mystics at home, so they do lead this series 1-0. But you look at some injuries. Skylar Diggins out as a game-time decision. Katie Lou Samuelson's out for the year. Sika Cone is suspended, and Georgia Amore is out for the season, and she hadn't played all season for the Mystics anyway. Mystics 3-2 in their last 5. The Storm 2-3 in their last 5. But I think the Storm are going to be able to come out on top. There's something about them losing that first game in this series that I think is going to be able to work in their favor on the second time around. It's hard to beat a team twice, hard to beat a team 3 times. But, man, the Mystics are sure going to give it a shot. Speaking of the Mystics, they're playing in back-to-back games this weekend as they will be taking on the Phoenix Mercury on Sunday. This is a 6 p.m. tip. This is also at the Care First Arena, so they don't have to travel at all. The Mercury are 15-7. They're 6-4 on the road. Sabali and Thomas doing their thing to lead the Mercury into town, while Sykes and Irifin will be doing everything they can to grab the Mystics a win in this back-to-back gauntlet. ESPN giving the Mercury a 54.6% chance to win this game. The Mystics, meanwhile, clinging on to 45.4%. It is helpful that they're at home. Both these teams are 3-2 in their last 5. The Mercury 7-3 in their last 10. While the Mystics are just 6-4. The Mercury averaging 83.4 points per game, which is more than what the Mystics are putting up. They're only giving up 79.3 points per game, which is less than what the Mystics are allowing. They're both shooting 43.3% from the field, which is insane. They're both grabbing about 35 rebounds. Phoenix Mercury putting up 21 assists, which is more than what the Mystics have. 4 blocks. It's 1 more than the Mystics. 8.6 steals is 2.2 more than the Mystics. You see what I'm getting at here? Seems like the Mercury are just a tad bit better than the Mystics. So I'm going to slide and say that the Mercury are going to win a game out in D.C. as well, which means the Mystics are going to go 0-2 in a tough back-to-back. I may be wrong, and that would be great for them to split or go 2-0. but things don't look great for them in these two matchups, and I'm going to pick both their opponents in the Storm and the Mercury to come out on top. That's going to get us into our last pick of the weekend. This is going to be the Atlanta Dream, who are 13-10 and 5-7 on the road, taking a trip to take on the Minnesota Lynx, who are 21-4 on the year and a whopping 13-0 when they're playing at home in the Target Center. A 7 p.m. tip-off on NBA TV on Sunday. They're giving the Lynx a 68.5% chance to win this game, just a 31.6% chance for the Dream. Dream are going to be without Ryan Howard, who's out until August 1st. Meanwhile, the Lynx are out with Natasha Heidman, who's a game-time decision, and then Carly Samuelson, who is out for the season. Alicia Gray, Jones, and the crew will be trying to do everything they can to give Nafisa Collier, Williams, and everyone else wearing a Lynx jersey trouble on Sunday night, but it's going to be tough for them. The Lynx are 4-1 in their last 5 games, 8-2 in their last 10. The Dream 4-6 in their last 10, and they're just 2-3 in their last 5. It's such an uphill battle, especially with the Lynx being perfect at home. You can't get me to pick against them when the game's at Target Center. I'm going to take the Lynx to win yet another home game. That means I got the Tigers beating the Diamondbacks in a series. I got McGee taking down Jan, and I got DeRitter taking down Whitaker, both of those in the octagon. Then I got the Storm over the Mystics, the Mercury over the Mystics, and the Lynx over the Dream on the WNBA hardwoods. Those are the picks for the week. I hope that you enjoy a weekend full of sports, as I will as well. We'll be back next week to talk more Mitten Madness and all the sports in the state of Michigan with more Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK.
Join Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Miss the show or want to run it back? Stream Mitten Madness on demand on the WBCK app. Sponsored by airwaycashforjunkcars.com.